Hi there. Can I explain to you in a couple of minutes how to create a much more fluid business model? Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick Stahl and I teach leadership and self-leadership. This is on leadership and a little bit about self-leadership also. Here's the thing. There's something called the Business Model Generation. It's a book. It's a collaborative book spearheaded by Alexander Osterwalder. Now, what I want you to do is to get that book and also the sequel that's called Value Proposition Design. Both of those books are really good for helping us understand that business model cannot be the way they were in the 90s. We cannot say that let's create this business model and then stick to it for 10 years. We need to be much more fluid. Now it looks kind of like this. You don't have to worry if it's stressful like so many tiny boxes. There's a lot of Creative Commons things around this, which means that you can download it, print out, use it, and adapt it as long as you refer to where it's from originally. You can print out large canvases that you and your team can work with, and you can work with just one box or the whole concept. And I'm going to share with you just an overview. The business model canvas means that you look at your business, you look at your value proposition, you look at what you do and for whom. You have key partners. That could be legal partners, production partners like the factory or the producer in another country. You got things like key activities. That's what you do. I'm a leadership trainer, so I do a lot of webinars, but I mainly do face-to-face 2-3 day workshops. And most of all, I do long leadership development programs. Those are my key activities. There are other key activities. If I dig deep into that one, where I ask myself, what other key activities do I have? Certain first contact meetings. I do networking activities, key activities to get my job done. Key resources could be like intellectual property, IP, or patents, or key resources could be people that you have hired. If you have 20 Python programmers, then you want to come up with a solution that kind of activates the 20 Python programmers. Value proposition is what's the product or service that you propose to a certain customer segment. And then you have customer relationships and channels. That's really what's the tonality of your relationship, what kind of relationship you have with your customer. Is it one-off relationships, or is it a subscription model where you want to build a long-term relationship? What kind of channels? Do you meet them on fairs or marketplaces, or do you have a physical store? Things like that. How do you also ship things to your customer if you have a tangible physical product? Down here you got revenue stream and cost structure. You can dig into them also and look at what's the revenue stream, what type of revenue do we have, is it a recurring revenue? This is, for example, where a lot of innovation happened when software as a service, the SaaS models showed up, which totally changed the game for how do you charge for a software or a software service. So when you have this canvas, you can start looking at what are we already doing as a company. As a company, what are we already doing? You can say that most companies, they start either from here or from there. Most companies, they start by saying, what do we have and how do we sell that? How do we package that nicely? If I have 40 or 80 Python programmers employed, and someone says, we need some sort of a customer interaction experience, then my first reply will be, what you're looking for is a Python-based experience on the web or in an app. Now, because that's what I have. I have my key resources, I have my key partners, I know my key activities. If someone says, let's do leadership training, my first experience, my first idea would be probably to say, okay, let's look at the leadership program, because that's what I do. So sometimes you begin from that perspective, other times you begin from the other total polarity perspective, where you say customer segments, which are our customer segments, who are our customers, can we pinpoint them and find the 5 ideal segments that are most profitable, and then we ask them, what do you guys want? What do you want? We'll bend over, but you don't want Python programmers? Don't worry, we'll fire them. Gone. What do you want? Now, this total adaptation to what the customer wants can be lucrative, as much as the lucrative perspective of pushing a Python solution if that's all you got. Now, if you do that, Sometimes you miss value propositions because you're only asking the customers, which means that you're asking questions like, what exactly do you want? And there's this old saying where Henry Ford said, if I'd asked the customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, I promise you, when Henry Ford was disrupting the market with his automobile, at the same time, there were probably a couple of horse trainers who said, faster horses, gotcha. Because there's a business opportunity in doing exactly what the customer wants. There's a business opportunity in selling exactly what you have. And there's a third business opportunity, which is to start with a value proposition and say, what is possible? What kind of value proposition is possible if we can be flexible with what we have? If we can be flexible and retrain to some extent the customers with what they want. Because there's a bit of explaining going in both directions if you want to start with just a value proposition. So that's just a brief explanation of the business model canvas. If you like this, then I will record a second video where I talk about the value proposition design, which means how do you take the value proposition and make sure that you have a strategic fit with the customer segment, with what the customer really wants, so that you focus on these two. That's value proposition design, and that's for the next video.